Part 2. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 11. Aunt Fu stayed in the room for about half an hour. After the temperature in the room dropped, she turned up the air conditioner, covered Wei Yuxian with a quilt, and walked out. In the living room, Fu's mother was still chatting with Fu Xuanyi about Wei Yuxian. When she saw Aunt Fu coming out, Fu's mother asked, "How's it going?" Aunt Fu said, "The temperature has dropped, and Madam can sleep much more peacefully." After the temperature dropped, the room was not as comfortable as usual, and with the soft big bed under her, Wei Yuxian slept more peacefully. She slept until after 3 o'clock. She felt that the surrounding environment was very comfortable and cool, and the quilt on her body was just right, neither cold nor hot. Why? Quilt. She remembered that she didn't cover herself with a quilt when she slept. Why was she covered with a quilt now? Also, she remembered that the room was also very hot. Why was it so comfortable now? Wei Yuxian sat up from the bed and looked around. She heard the sound of the air conditioner turning in the room. When she looked over, she saw that the air conditioner was running dutifully at 26 degrees Celsius. When did she turn on the air conditioner? She obviously didn't turn on the air conditioner. No wonder she found that she had slept so comfortably when she woke up. It turned out to be because the air conditioner was on. It was so cool inside the room that I couldn't feel any heat at all. When Wei Yuxian heard the sound of the air conditioner running, it was like hearing the sound of money flowing. Without time to think about it, she got up, found the remote control, turned off the air conditioner first, and stopped the loss in time. She put down the remote control with a look of pain on her face and breathed a sigh of relief. I don't know how long the air conditioner has been on and how much the electricity bill cost. She remembered clearly that she did not turn on the air conditioner before going to bed, but when she woke up she found that it was on, which was a bit strange. So she got up, washed herself in the brand new bathroom with new toiletries, walked out of the room, and thought about asking Aunt Fu what was going on. Aunt Fu is the housekeeper of the family, so she should know what is going on. Wei Yuxian walked downstairs step by step, looking for Aunt Fu as she walked. Before she could find Aunt Fu, Fu Xuanyi and a strange old woman in the living room broke into her sight. This old woman looks a bit older and looks a bit like Fu Xuanyi, and her temperament is as good as Fu Xuanyi's. Wei Yuxian immediately guessed the identity of this old woman, Fu Xuanyi's mother. She originally wanted to avoid the two people's eyes and find Aunt Fu. After all, with her current status, it seemed not good to meet Fu Xuanyi's mother. She is a woman who is pregnant with Fu Xuanyi's child, and she has no name or status. The old lady probably won't treat her well. It's better for her not to taint the old lady's eyes. Thinking like this, Wei Yuxian's heart ached slightly, her steps became much gentler, and she walked somewhere else. Unexpectedly, the two people in the living room noticed her as soon as her figure appeared at the stairs. Fu's mother was still waiting for her to come over and say hello to her. She sat on the sofa and looked expectantly at the little man over there. As a result, Wei Yuxian turned around and walked towards where she was going, with a look of inferiority on her face. How could Fu's mother not know what she was thinking just now? She was afraid that she would feel that she didn't want to see her and wouldn't dare to come over. This kid is really... Fu's mother already felt sorry for her and thought she was a pitiful child. Now, she felt that Wei Yuxian was even more pitiful and lacked love. "Yuxian," she called out and stopped the person who was about to go elsewhere. Wei Yuxian's whole body stiffened, she stopped and froze on the spot, her whole body became visibly nervous. At this moment, her back was turned to Fu's mother. No one could see how helpless her expression was at this moment. She took a deep breath to stop herself from being so nervous, turned around slowly, and asked with a forced smile, "Hello, are you okay?" Fu Xuanyi and the old lady have a strong aura, and the oppression feels even stronger when they sit together. Wei Yuxian didn't speak very eloquently anymore. At this moment, she felt inferior and afraid. She was afraid that the old lady would look down on her and thought that she was a country girl and not worthy of standing in such a high place as the Fu mansion. Growing up in such an environment, few people around her liked her, and even her closest family members mostly disliked her, causing Wei Yuxian to become very unconfident. Fu's mother couldn't suppress the pain in her heart. The expression on her face was very soft, trying to comfort the easily frightened little person. Her tone was as gentle as possible and she said, "Yuxian, come here." Wei Yuxian's body became even stiffer, and her usually light steps were now as heavy as lead. She didn't want to move a step or walk over. Although the expression on the old lady's face looked very kind, Wei Yuxian was still in awe of such a noble person as the old lady. But she had to obey the old lady's words. If she made the old lady unhappy, her life would be even more difficult. In order to live a better life in the Fu mansion and give birth to her children safely in the future, Wei Yuxian suppressed the fear in her heart and walked over step by step. He moves very slowly, like an octogenarian in his old age. Fu Xuanyi watched her walking over, with no expression on his face and no words. He just watched quietly. No one could see through his inner thoughts. No matter how long the road is, there will be an end. In addition, Wei Yuxian was not far from Fu's mother, so she quickly walked to Fu's mother, hesitated for a while, bowed her head respectfully and called out, "Old madam." She placed her position as low as that of a servant in the Fu mansion. Fu's mother stretched out her hand to hold her hand in front of her belly and said, "It doesn't have to be like this." Wei Yuxian raised her head in fear, her eyes a little panicked. She wanted to pull her hand back, but she was afraid that she would use too much force and hurt the old lady, so she could only struggle gently. Fu's mother grabbed her hand tightly to prevent her from breaking away. She pulled her forward and asked her to sit down on the sofa. "Yuxian, there's no need to act like this, I'm not a bad person." Wei Yuxian couldn't pull her hand away. She was so worried that she could only let the old lady hold her hand and said, "I don't dare." Fu's mother clapped her hand and said, "Don't be afraid, I won't do anything to you, I just want to talk to you." Wei Yuxian swallowed nervously, cold sweat almost broke out on her forehead, and said, "You tell me." Fu's mother, "You must have guessed that I am Xian's mother." Wei Yuxian still had a forced smile on her face. "Yes, I guessed it, you are Master Xian's mother. I know that you have the flesh and blood of our Xian in your belly. Xian took you here so that you can raise the baby with peace of mind, so you don't have to worry about anything, just live here with peace of mind. Also, you may not know that our Fu family has had a hard time raising children since our ancestors. Now that you have the blood and bones of the Fu family in your belly, we will not let them wander outside. This year, I have worked hard for you." After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 12. Wei Yuxian didn't know what to say, so she opened her mouth and moved her lips a few times, but finally said nothing. Does she want to say that she will stay here to raise her baby well and peacefully? How could she feel at ease? How could she feel at ease when such a cold god as Fu Xuanyi was here? She was afraid that she might offend him if she didn't pay attention. And his face was also cold and expressionless. One look at it made his whole body shiver. She could feel that Fu Xuanyi had no feelings for her. That night, Fu Xuanyi might have taken advantage of her. The reason why he was brought to the Fu mansion was because of the child in his belly. It was also because of the child that he promised to take him to and from school every day. Lin Chenyuan said that it was difficult for the Fu family to have heirs, and that night Fu Xuanyi also said that he had no heirs. Even the old lady had just said that it was difficult for the Fu family to have heirs, so Wei Yuxian knew that this was probably true. Therefore, the child in her belly, a child with Fu family blood, is very important. It is possible that the only descendants of the Fu family are the two children in her belly. And it was only because of her two children that she was able to live in the Fu mansion and enjoy this excellent environment. And later on, Fu Xuanyi said that he would ensure that she would have a worry-free life, and it was because of these two children. She is as valuable as her mother. But if she was given a choice, she would rather not have these two children in her belly, so that she would not have to deal with top wealthy families like the Fu family, go to college with peace of mind, and find a good job to support herself after graduation. Unfortunately, there is no if. She remained silent, pursed her lips. Seeing her purse her lips and pretending to be strong, Fu's mother sighed inwardly and said, "I don't mean to increase your pressure by saying this. It is true that the blood of the Fu family is rare, but if there is a critical moment, your life must come before the two children. This means not treating her as a tool to give birth to a child, but treating her as a living person and taking her as the most important thing." Wei Yuxian couldn't help but secrete some tears in her eyes, and her nose was a little sore. After a while, she said good to Fu's mother. Gently. She found that the old lady was different from what she had imagined. She was an approachable person, very different from those arrogant wealthy old ladies in TV series. Because of Fu Xuanyi, she felt that the old lady was not an easy person to get along with, but looking at her now, she had the first impression. The old lady is still easy to get along with, as long as she is much easier to get along with than Fu Xuanyi. Speaking of Fu Xuanyi, Wei Yuxian was afraid of him, so until now, she had not dared to look at him for fear of seeing his expressionless face. Seeing her look more relaxed, Fu's mother felt happy and said, "Yuxian, you must still be lacking a lot of things after moving here. Can I take you to buy some things?" Wei Yuxian shook her head a few times and said, "No, old lady, I don't lack anything. I have everything here, and there is nothing to add. The Fu Mansion has prepared a complete set of daily necessities, and they are all brand new and the best. She lacks nothing. How had she ever used such a good thing before? Not to mention it's used, I've never even seen it. Everything in the Fu family is really different. How can the things used by top wealthy families be the same as those in ordinary people's homes? She has nothing to be dissatisfied with living here." She was even afraid that if she got used to such a good life, she would not be able to return to normal life in the future. It is easy to go from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to go from luxury to frugality. Fu's mother disagreed and said, "I always need to buy more clothes. Listen to me and let's go." She stood up, pulled Wei Yuxian up and walked outside. Wei Yuxian stopped and said, "Old madam, it's really not necessary. It doesn't cost anything. I'm fine now and there's no need to buy any more clothes." Fu's mother looked at the white clothes on her body and wondered what she should do. What's better? Also, she just learned from Xian that Yuxian only brought 2 sets of clothes when she came here. They were also washed until they turned white, and she didn't know how long they had been worn. That's all, and you still say you're good? Mother Fu would never believe it. She and Wei Yuxian pushed and pulled, one tried desperately to persuade, the other tried desperately to refuse. Fu Xuanyi turned the black beads in his hand, his face still expressionless. He stood up slowly, came to the two of them, and looked into Wei Yuxian's eyes. 2 indifferent words came out of his mouth, "Follow up." He walked out first, leaving Wei Yuxian and Fu's mother with tall and stern figures behind them. Wei Yuxian trembled because of his coldness. She didn't dare to talk to Fu's mother anymore and followed him silently. She dared to fight with the old lady, but she didn't dare to fight with this man. She was afraid. Mother Fu was visibly happy, and she took Wei Yuxian's hand and walked together. Although she didn't quite agree with her son talking to Yuxian in such a cold tone, she was willing to listen to what he said, so she didn't care. It's just that in the future, Xian still needs to talk more. He can't keep talking like this, it's very hurtful. After walking outside, the driver drove to the door. Fu Xuanyi sat in the passenger seat, and Wei Yuxian and Fu's mother sat in the back seat. Wei Yuxian remained silent, with no desire to speak. Fu's mother, on the other hand, took her to chat, trying to ease her tension and make her relax. Wei Yuxian tried not to notice the man in the passenger seat and focused on the old lady, so that she would not look so nervous. I have to say that it still has some effects. When you are devoted to doing one thing, it is difficult to notice other things. But Wei Yuxian still didn't dare to let down her guard, and was a little cautious when chatting with the old lady, for fear of saying the wrong thing. All the way to the shopping mall and getting out of the car, Wei Yuxian looked at the magnificent building in front of her. At a glance, she could see endless stores. Each store was decorated with luxurious decorations. Like before, she only dared to look at these high-end shopping malls from the outside, and didn't even have the courage to go in. She heard from her classmates who were well off that the products in these high-end shopping malls start at a few $100s each, and the more expensive ones cost tens of thousands. How can she have such spare money in her hands? It is not easy to raise the tuition fees to go to school. Looking at the shopping mall in front of her, Wei Yuxian felt resistance well up in her heart. She didn't want to step into a place like this. The smooth tiles inside would reflect her embarrassment and uneasiness. The place she is suitable for is those messy small markets. Fu's mother walked in with her, but found that the people around her were frozen in place. Looking over, she saw hesitation and resistance on her face. "What's wrong, Yuxian?" she asked. "This is just a shopping mall, anyone can go in, don't think too much." She could see Yuxian's low self-esteem, resistance, and lack of confidence, and she also knew why she was like this. It was related to her experiences from childhood to adulthood, which could not be changed. But her lack of confidence and low self-esteem can be overcome, but it will take time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 13. Wei Yuxian took a deep breath and thought, yes, this is just a shopping mall, it's nothing, customers are God. When she makes money on her own in the future, will she still be afraid of such a place? She smiled at Fu's mother beside her and said, "It's okay, madam." "Yes, that's right." Fu's mother led her inside. The shopping mall is divided into several floors. There are so many stores inside, and the things on each floor are different. The clothing area was on the second floor. They took the elevator up and saw a dazzling array of stores with all kinds of clothes inside. Wei Yuxian looked at the names on the stores. Some of them she had heard of, and some she had never seen before, but that didn't stop them all from having one thing in common, that is, they were very expensive. A piece of clothing is estimated to cost hundreds or even thousands of yuan. Fu's mother didn't look at other clothing brands and took Wei Yuxian to the brand she often went to. She felt that the clothes from that brand were the most comfortable and the designs were to her liking. Wei Yuxian had no choice. She would follow the old lady wherever she went. Fu Xuanyi followed them without saying a word, and behind him were several bodyguards. Entering the clothing store, the salesperson recognized the old lady at a glance and quickly informed the manager, who came to greet her. The manager is a woman in her early 40s, smartly dressed, and looks like an elite. Wei Yuxian looked at the person in front of her, who was wearing a nice uniform, beautiful and confident, and felt a burst of envy in her heart. She envied her confidence and success. At the same time, I couldn't help but fantasize about what it would look like to put on a suit and officially go to work. The manager came up to him with a smile and said, "Old madam, you are here. What do you want to buy today? There are several new styles that are suitable for you recently." Do you want to take a look? Fu's mother also greeted everyone with a smile and said, let's not look at it today. Let's see if there are any clothes that suit her. Fu's mother looked at Wei Yuxian beside her and patted her hand. The manager was a good person, so he knew what he shouldn't ask and didn't ask about Wei Yuxian's identity. Instead, he said, this lady is so beautiful. If you believe me, madam, I will keep this lady's clothes. I'm sure you'll be satisfied. Fu's mother said, okay, I'll leave it to you then. I still trust your vision, but you have to dress her up beautifully. Manager, don't worry, madam, I will let you see a completely changed person. She took a look at Wei Yuxian's clothes. They were a loose white t-shirt and black pants. They were washed white and looked like they had been worn for a long time. Wei Yuxian didn't show any slight attitude because she was poorly dressed. What a joke, this is someone the old lady brought here personally, how could she dare to neglect him? She carefully looked at the man sitting on the sofa over there. He was wearing a string of round and smooth black Buddhist beads on his wrist. Who could he be if he wasn't Mr. Xian, the ruthless Buddha from Kyoto? The old lady came with Master Xian, and she bought clothes specifically for this woman. How simple could this woman's identity be? Managers never dare to slack off. With a decent smile on her face, she said to Wei Yuxian, Miss, please come with me to have a look. Madam, do you want to come with us? She also asked in passing. Fu's mother replied, then let's take a look together. Ah Xian, you come too, she called Fu Xuanyi, who was sitting on the sofa. Fu Xuanyi put down the fashion magazine in his hand and said nothing. He stood up and walked over. He was not interested in it and was extremely cold. The manager took the three Buddhas to the top area first, then came to the new area. He picked up a piece of clothing, placed it on Wei Yuxian's body and said, Miss, this dress suits you very well. Fu's mother let go of her hand, walked up to her, looked at her, and said, I really like you, Yuxian, see if you like it. Wei Yuxian looked at the exquisite clothes in the manager's hands and thought, how could she not like them? How many people don't like such a good thing? But she remembered the price she had just accidentally glimpsed. She didn't see it clearly, but she saw many zeros. She said, I don't think it suits me very well. I don't like to wear something like this. The manager put the clothes back and said, it's okay, miss, we still have many styles, there will always be one you like. Fu's mother also said, yes, there are so many clothes, there is always one you like. Wei Yuxian secretly bit her lower lip and said The manager quickly found another nice-looking piece of clothing, put it in front of Wei Yuxian, and said, this one also suits you very well. It looks fresh and elegant. Do you like it? Wei Yuxian looked at the clothes carefully for a while and shook her head. Then on to the next item, the manager dutifully found clothes for Wei Yuxian and asked her if she liked it. After several items, Wei Yuxian's answer was that she didn't like it. But looking at her expression, it was clear that she didn't like it. Her eyes were obviously glued to one thing, but she still said she didn't like it. Fu's mother understood what was going on. The child must be reluctant to buy these clothes. This child is used to being thrifty, so naturally he is unwilling to buy such expensive clothes. But this child will almost be considered a member of their Fu family from now on, how can he wear such bad clothes? Fu's mother would never agree. Fu Xuanyi also saw what she was thinking and felt a little irritated. When will he be able to buy it after all this procrastination? He came to Wei Yuxian, stared into her eyes, and felt pressure pouring out, and said in a cold tone, you choose, or I choose. 5 words, let Wei Yuxian make a choice, no matter which one it is, Wei Yuxian doesn't want to choose. Can't we just buy clothes? Her current clothes are also very good. They are not dirty or torn, and they can be worn for a long time. These are not unnecessary things, so there is no need to buy so many, although her clothes are indeed very poor compared to those of the Fu family. Fu Xuanyi's cold eyes stared at her, making her feel as if she was being stared at by a poisonous snake, and her whole body shivered. Now she had to make a choice. If she chooses by herself, she can also choose some of her favorites. If Fu Xuanyi chooses, maybe he will buy the entire store. Therefore, after weighing the balance, Wei Yuxian whispered, "I will choose myself." He lowered his head and did not dare to look at Fu Xuanyi. If she continues to watch, she will tremble all over, trembling with fear. Fu Xuanyi walked back without saying a word, took off the Buddhist beads from his wrist, and played with them on his fingertips. Next, Wei Yuxian became more cooperative. When she saw the clothes she liked, she would sincerely say that she liked them, and if she didn't like the clothes, she would say she didn't like them. Fu's mother also had a clear smile on her face. The manager also breathed a sigh of relief. After choosing 5 pieces of clothing that she liked, Wei Yuxian saw that the manager wanted to get another one, so she hurriedly said to Fu's mother beside her, "Old madam, that's enough. There are too many, and I can't wear them." After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 14. Fu's mother clapped her hand and said, "It's okay. It's okay to buy a few more. Wear 1 piece a day, and it will be the same in a few days." Wei Yuxian had no choice but to pick out 5 more items and said, "That's enough, old lady. I can't wear so many." Seeing her expression, Fu's mother knew that this was her limit, so she stopped forcing it and said, "Okay, let's buy this much for today." Wei Yuxian breathed a sigh of relief, wiped the non-existent sweat on her forehead, and thought she could go to check out. Unexpectedly, the manager took her to the underwear area in the next second. "It's not enough to buy clothes, you also need to buy pants to match the clothes you just wore." Wei Yuxian bravely chose 10 pairs of pants. The saleswoman behind her took a thick pile of clothes and pants and moved them to the checkout counter. "It should be fine this time, right?" Wei Yuxian thought to herself. As a result, it's not over yet. The manager took them to the skirt area, shoes area, underwear and socks area, etc., and got all their outfits ready. 2 hours passed after such a pick. Wei Yuxian had gained a lot, but it was not something she bought willingly, so her mood was not much better. Fu's mother was happy. She bought a lot of new clothes for Wei Yuxian. When she was checking out, she smiled and said to the people around her, "Yuxian, you can wear these clothes from now on. If they are not enough, ask Xian to buy them for you." Wei Yuxian smiled bitterly and said weakly, "Okay, madam." She glanced at Fu Xuanyi. He was paying. He didn't even blink when he took out his card and swiped hundreds of thousands of dollars. How heroic. The salesperson helped them pack the clothes with a smile on their faces, and it took a total of 5 minutes to finish packing. The bodyguard behind him had the foresight to step forward, take the things in his hands, and follow the owner. After walking out of the clothing store, Wei Yuxian couldn't help but shudder, thinking that she would never be able to come to a place like this again. It took only 2 hours to spend hundreds of thousands, which was money she could not even imagine. When she goes out to work in the future, how long will it take for her to earn hundreds of thousands? 1 year? Or 2 years? Spending money is like running water, this is really true. Seeing her trembling, Fu's mother quickly asked with concern, "What's wrong? Is the air conditioner too cold? Do you want to put on a coat before leaving?" The air conditioning in this shopping mall is very good, but people who are afraid of the cold can't stand it very well. Wei Yuxian shook her head and said, "No, it's not cold. No need." She just had lingering fears, thinking about those hundreds of thousands. "I've bought all my outfits, it's time to leave now, there's nothing left to buy." Fu's mother said, "If you're cold, don't bear it. It won't be good if you catch a cold. You are weak now and can't hold on. When she said weak, she was referring to Wei Yuxian's pregnancy. Wei Yuxian nodded, indicating that she understood. Fu's mother felt relieved, took Wei Yuxian to the elevator, and pressed the button for the 7th floor. Wei Yuxian wondered what she was doing on the 7th floor. Was she still going to buy something? She quickly asked, "Old madam, aren't we going back? You should click on the 1st floor when you go back." Fu's mother said, "Don't worry, let's go buy some more things. We'll have dinner when we get home in a while." Wei Yuxian's heart skipped a beat and she asked, "Is there anything else I want to buy? Aren't all the clothes finished?" Mother Fu did not tell her directly, but said, "You will know later." The elevator quickly reached the 7th floor. As soon as the door opened, you were greeted by a variety of electronic products, including mobile phones, computers, tablets, watches, etc. Wei Yuxian thought of the off-brand mobile phone she bought for 200 to 300 yuan. After using it for several years, it was stuck and it should be eliminated long ago. But she still keeps using it, because the phone can still be used, but it requires some patience. She never wanted to replace it. She thought she would use it if it could still be used. If it couldn't be used anymore, she would consider buying a new one. Now, she didn't expect that the old lady would even consider this. To be honest, she felt quite warm in her heart. It felt so good to be cared about and cared about. She was no longer alone. It's just that the old lady is kind, but she can't accept it with peace of mind. Fu's mother took Wei Yuxian to a certain mobile phone store. It was a big brand. The advertisements were very loud on the mobile TV. Wei Yuxian knew this big brand. As soon as she entered the door, Fu's mother asked someone to take out the best mobile phone in several colors and put it in front of Wei Yuxian for her to choose. Wei Yuxian didn't want to choose, so she discussed with the old lady, "Old lady, my mobile phone can still be used, so there is no need to spend so much money. It's time to change your cell phone to a better one so that I can contact you in the future." Mother Fu said, "Pick a color you like." Wei Yuxian continued to persuade the old lady, trying to make her give up her plan to buy a mobile phone. After a few words of persuasion, the old lady insisted on buying it, and the two of them started to push each other. About 2 minutes later, Wei Yuxian heard a cold voice, saying, "This." It was Fu Xuanyi. He didn't want to see them dragging on anymore, so he made the decision for Wei Yuxian so that his ears could be clearer. He chose a white one, which was the prettiest of all the colors. It must be said that he had a very good sense. The staff picked up the phone and said with a smile, "Okay guest, let's show you the phone." After the mobile phone was turned on, the staff showed some functions of the mobile phone and also told them some basic information. Fu Xuanyi was not interested in this. He just felt it was a waste of time and wanted to finish shopping and go back early. Shopping with a woman is really troublesome, he defined it in his mind. Wei Yuxian opened her mouth when she was about to say rejection. But before the sound came out, she was blocked by Fu Xuanyi's eyes. She saw what Fu Xuanyi's eyes meant, telling her not to cause trouble for him. Wei Yuxian could only close her mouth, not daring to say anything, and quietly watched the staff packing mobile phones. Fu's mother stopped the staff and said, "There's no need to pack it. We'll put the card in now. Yuxian, take out your phone." Wei Yuxian remained silent, took out her phone and handed it to the staff. The staff skillfully helped her change the card into the new phone, copied the contents of the original phone to the new phone, and asked, "Do you need any other services?" Fu's mother thought about it and asked the staff to upgrade Wei Yuxian's data plan to an unlimited data plan, so that she didn't have to save data. Then he recharged some phone bills for her and reminded Fu Xuanyi to remember to recharge her phone bills every month in the future. Fu Xuanyi nodded, indicating that he understood. When Wei Yuxian walked out of the mobile phone store, She had a new mobile phone in her hand. The old one was also in her hand, and she was reluctant to throw it away. Later, Fu's mother bought her a tablet and a laptop, both of which were the best, and let her take them to school. Wei Yuxian couldn't refuse, so she could only accept it numbly. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 15. The moment she walked out of the mall, Wei Yuxian breathed a sigh of relief. After the old lady bought him some electronic equipment, she didn't buy anything else. She looked at the sunset in the distance, slowly sinking into the mountains. After getting in the car, she put her clothes on the bodyguard's car behind her. There wasn't enough room to put them there, so she put some more in the trunk of the car where she was sitting. One can imagine how many things the old lady bought for her today. He knew that the old lady wanted to be nice to her and buy her some useful things to make her life better. In her eyes, this money is a very large sum of money, but in the eyes of the Fu family, this money is nothing. They have a heroic background. Wei Yuxian thought that she should thank the old lady for buying her so many things. Although these were not what she wanted to buy or want, she would use them in the future, so she should thank the old lady. This situation may happen many times in the future. She can't accept it now. In the future, it's hard to say. No one knows what will happen in the future. Wei Yuxian thought about how to speak, pressed the phone that was still warm when she just got it, took a look at the wallpaper that came with the system, and then turned it off. Taking a deep breath to gather her courage, she said, "Old madam, thank you for buying me these things." Fu's mother, "You don't need to say thank you to my family. If you still need something in the future, feel free to say it without being polite. It's the same with me as with Xian. Yuxian, today is the money Xian paid for you. If you want, say thank you to Xian." She wanted to bring them together in her heart, but Xian had never been attracted to or interested in any girl in these years. Although he was willing to touch Yuxian for some unknown reason and had a child, at first glance, Xian was still cold to Yuxian, and he had returned to his original selfless self. After thinking about it, Xian couldn't change his bad behavior. It would be better to bring him and Yuxian together. After all, there is still a relationship between them as a child. Moreover, after only getting along for a short time, she could tell that Yuxian was a good kid, much better than those messy and scheming women outside. The only bad thing is that this child's family background is completely different from that of the Fu family. But the Fu family doesn't value this either. In terms of background, who in the entire Kyoto can compare with their Fu family? The Fu family also disdained the use of marriage to enhance their heritage. What they valued more was heirs. Under the old lady's encouraging gaze, Wei Yuxian slowly lowered her gaze to the indifferent man over there and whispered, "Thank you, Master Xian." The servants at home, people outside, and even Fu Xuanyi's childhood all called him this, so Wei Yuxian also called him this. But Fu's mother didn't like this title and said, "What's your name, Mr. Xian?" "Those are the names outsiders use. Just call me Xian in your own family. You can remember it in the future." Wei Yuxian smiled at the old lady but said nothing, not knowing whether she would agree or not. The indifferent man over there said in response to her thank you just now. Fu's mother looked at her cold son and didn't know how to prevent him from showing such a cold face to outsiders and to her own family. It was very troublesome. When they got home, it was dinner time. As soon as Aunt Fu saw them coming back, she quickly asked the servants to bring the food to the table and said, "Old madam, Mr. Xian, madam, dinner is ready." Father Fu went back not long after he came here. He had some things to deal with. Naturally, Wei Yuxian was not seen. After washing their hands, they sat down at the dining table. A nutritious meal was placed in front of Wei Yuxian, which was a maternity meal customized for her by the kitchen staff. Her nutrition is not very good, and she looks very thin and small, the kind that could fall over if the wind blows. If she doesn't eat better, she will suffer when the child in her belly is a month old. At noon today, after receiving the notice, the kitchen quickly customized a recipe for Madam. I will follow the recipe every day from now on to ensure that Madam and the little master in her belly are taken good care of. Wei Yuxian saw that her rice was different from other people's. She looked at Aunt Fu with confusion and asked with her eyes, "Why is mine different? Have to eat it separately." Aunt Fu was afraid that she would think too much, so she explained, "Madam, this is a nutritious meal specially prepared for you by the kitchen. It will give you enough nutrition. Your body needs more nourishment." Wei Yuxian nodded, said "Oh," and added thank you after a while. Fu's mother sat next to Wei Yuxian, and Fu Xuanyi sat opposite her. The former said, "Yuxian, you need to eat more. You are too thin. Eat more to gain weight." Wei Yuxian nodded, "Okay, madam." Wei Yuxian ate the nutritious meal in front of her. It was different from the nutritious meal she had imagined. This nutritious meal tasted very good, not bland and tasteless. She quite liked it. It seems good if you eat nutritious meals like this from now on, and you can take good care of your body. Many diseases are caused by dietary problems. If you don't eat well and your body is too poor, your physical fitness will also deteriorate, your resistance will decrease, and you will naturally become sick easily. If you eat well, take good care of your body, and increase your resistance, you won't get sick so easily. Wei Yuxian ate more than half of the nutritious meal and wanted to finish the rest as she didn't want to waste it, but her stomach was so full that she would vomit if she took another bite, so she could only watch the servant take it away. Fu's mother saw her reluctance and said, "As long as you are full, Yuxian, everything should be in moderation. If you eat too much and end up with a bad stomach, the price you pay will be even greater." Wei Yuxian thought about it and felt that it was the same. If she had a bad stomach, she would have to spend extra money to see a doctor, which would not be worth the gain. Fu Xuanyi was also full, wiped his mouth with a napkin, took out a bank card from his pocket, pushed it in front of Wei Yuxian, and said, "Take it, there is no password, use it if you need to, don't save it." His operation was a bit sudden, which made Wei Yuxian confused. She looked at the bank card on the table and didn't react for a moment. "So good, why did you give her a bank card? Do you want to give her money to spend?" However, she didn't want to use Fu Xuanyi's money. She had money of her own, although it wasn't much, but she didn't want to use Fu Xuanyi's money either. She had already spent a lot of invisible money living in the Fu family, and she could not ask for any more money from Fu Xuanyi. Fu's mother took the bank card and put it in her hand without any courtesy, saying, "Just take what a Xian gives you, don't put any psychological burden on it, this is what our Fu family should give you. This is a Xian's card. You can spend as much as you want without any limit. You can buy whatever you like. You don't have to worry about spending all the money in it. You won't be able to spend it all in a short time. A Xian will also transfer money every month. Go in, so don't worry." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 16. Wei Yuxian held the bank card in her hand like a hot potato and thought to herself, "Is this a problem that I am not worried about? This is a question of whether she should take it or not. There must be a lot of money in this card, not to mention tens or millions, maybe tens of millions." And she remembered that when Fu Xuanyi paid just now, he also used this card. She was ashamed and said, "Old madam, I'd better not take this card. It's a nice place here and I don't have anything to buy. It doesn't cost anything." She quickly put the bank card back on the table. Fu's mother put the bank card in her hand again and said, "Just take it, what if you need money? Listen to me, take it, Yuxian, this is our Fu family. Mind." The intention was really big enough, so big that she didn't dare to accept it. She wanted to refuse again, but she accidentally glanced at Fu Xuanyi over there, only to see that he still looked expressionless, which made her feel horrified. In an instant, not daring to say any more words of rejection, Wei Yuxian quickly took the card into her hand and said, "Then I'll take it. Just take it and hold it. If the worst happens, don't use it anymore. If she doesn't spend money, can they still force her to spend money?" Seeing that she had accepted the card, Fu's mother showed a smile on her face and said, "That's right, don't be burdened. Yuxian, you have to slowly start to adapt to the life of the Fu family. In the future, you will be in the Fu family, life will only get better and better. I put my words here today. Anyone who dares to treat you badly is an enemy of my Fu family. The Fu family will keep you safe for the rest of your life." These words were too solemn, and they were said by the old lady of the Fu family herself. Wei Yuxian knew that this was true. The old lady was not just talking, she would take action. This is also what she wants. She wants to live a life without worries. This is her choice. She no longer wants to live through those bumpy days in the past. Even if there is no Fu family in the future, she will create such a life for herself. "Thank you, old lady," she said sincerely to Fu's mother. Fu's mother touched her face and said, "Good boy." Fu's mother sat in Fu's mansion for a while to accompany Wei Yuxian, and then went back to the Fu family's old house, leaving Fu's mansion for the two of them to exchange feelings. But 80% of the time, they don't know how to communicate with each other. Indeed, as she thought, the two did not exchange feelings or even say a word. Wei Yuxian was afraid of his strong aura and didn't want to face his cold face. After the old lady left, she returned to her room. As for what Fu Xuanyi would do, she didn't care. She sat in the room and read for a while, and she also did some homework. Then I thought about going down to Aunt Fu to ask about the situation this afternoon. After she got up this afternoon, she originally wanted to go to Aunt Fu to inquire about the situation, but she was intercepted by the old lady halfway and dragged away to buy something. Now, she still has not forgotten this incident. After finishing her homework, she stood up, stretched slightly, walked out of the room and looked down. She didn't see Fu Xuanyi's figure, so she walked down with confidence. When she got down there, she looked around and saw no sign of Aunt Fu. She didn't know where she had gone. She saw a servant in the house, stopped him and asked, "Hello, do you know where Aunt Fu is?" The servant quickly called out, "Hello, madam," before returning to her question, "Butler Fu is in the garden." "Does madam have anything to do with Butler Fu? I will contact her now." Wei Yuxian nodded and said, "Thank you." The servant said, "You're welcome, madam. You can go and sit on the sofa for a while. I have informed housekeeper Fu that she will be here in a moment." Wei Yuxian sat down on the sofa, feeling bored waiting for others. She took out her phone and checked to see if the teacher had posted any tasks in the group. Only a minute after she sat down, a servant brought a plate of cut fruit to her and said respectfully, "Ma'am, please have some fruit." "Thank you," Wei Yuxian said, taking a fork and eating the fruit. The fruits are very sweet, and the texture and taste are a little different from those she has eaten before. For example, these grapes have a bit of astringency in the ones she has eaten before, but not in the ones she eats now. It may be due to the variety. The grapes of this variety taste better, but of course, the price is much more expensive. In the Fu family, Wei Yuxian's life has undergone qualitative changes. There is no best, only better. After playing with her phone and waiting for a while, Aunt Fu came back from outside in a hurry. A thin layer of sweat broke out on her forehead. She asked respectfully, "Madam, are you looking for me?" Wei Yuxian was stunned for a moment and said, "Well, actually you don't have to be in such a hurry, and I don't have to either." Aunt Fu smiled nonchalantly and said, "Then I'll be slower next time." "Madam, please tell me something." Wei Yuxian stood up and started talking about business. Just when she was about to speak, she heard Aunt Fu say, "Madam, you can just sit down and talk. There is no need to stand up." She had no choice but to sit down again and said, "Aunt Fu, I just want to ask, did anyone enter my room when I was sleeping this afternoon?" "It turns out that this is what happened," Aunt Fu said. "Yes, madam, while you were sleeping, the old lady and Mr. Xian and I went in." Wei Yuxian thought that only the servants had gone in, but she didn't expect that Fu Xuanyi and the old lady also followed in. She asked, "Then the air conditioner in my room was turned on by the old lady or Master Xian?" "Aunt Fu, the old lady told me to turn it on." "Madam, you still need to turn on the air conditioner when you are in the room. It will make you suffocated. The maid's room in our house also has air conditioning. Everyone has it open. So madam, please don't have any psychological burden." Wei Yuxian thought for a while and asked Aunt Fu to go down, while she pondered on the sofa. The old lady and Mr. Xian both entered her room. Why didn't she hear any movement? So sleepy. She felt a little embarrassed. Then she thought about the air conditioner. "I looked up at the large hall. It was equipped with a central air conditioner. Cold air blew down from the top of my head. Even when no one was around, the room was still on, maintaining a comfortable room temperature. No one knows when the master will stay in the living room. If the master feels hot, it would be their servant's dereliction of duty, so except for bedtime at night, the air conditioner here is on. The Fu family is indeed not short of electricity bills," Wei Yuxian thought to herself. Apart from the air conditioner, there is no other cooling tool in the room. If she doesn't turn on the air conditioner, it will always be hot. I didn't know how many times I had to wake up throughout the night. Thinking of this, Wei Yuxian sighed and could only compromise and decided to turn on the air conditioner. She still numbed herself like this. The entire Fu mansion was so big, it used a lot of electricity and spent a lot of money, but she only used a small part, insignificant, so she just turned it on. In this way, Wei Yuxian made a decision. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 17. Wei Yuxian sat in the living room for a while, finished the fruit on the plate, packed it into the kitchen, and returned to the room. She stood in front of the air conditioner with the remote control in her hand. She looked at it quietly for a while and then turned on the air conditioner. After a while, cold air blew out from the air conditioner vent and spread on her body, dissipating the heat from her body. It was not bedtime yet. Wei Yuxian was bored in her room and had nothing to do, so she took out her book and previewed the upcoming content in advance. At this time, she would definitely still be working part-time. How could it be so easy? It would be nice to make a little more money. Speaking of part-time jobs, yes, after she lived in Fu's house, she could no longer work part-time jobs. Fu Xuanyi would pick her up from get-off work on time every day. She also wanted to tell her boss that she would not work part-time again. Without hesitation, she took out her mobile phone and sent several messages to her boss on WeChat, saying that she would not work part-time in the future and that she was sorry. The boss quickly replied to her message and didn't ask her why she didn't go. He just paid off her previous salary and said that if she was looking for a part-time job in the future, she could still go to him. Wei Yuxian thanked her boss several times, chatted with him for a while, and then put down her phone. As she flipped through the textbooks on the table, she couldn't read it. She was thinking, If she didn't work part-time, where would she get the money? However, in the Fu family, she didn't have anything to spend money on, but she still wanted to make a little more money, and she would feel more at ease with a little money. Fu Xuanyi gave her a bank card with countless money in it, but the money was not hers and she would not use it. Forget it, there will always be a way in the future, and the boat will be straight when it reaches the bridge. Thinking of this, she calmed down and read the book in her hand carefully. Seeing that it was past 10 o'clock in the evening, she yawned, covered her book, and consciously went to wash up and go to bed. Because the air conditioner was turned on, she slept very well that night. There were no mosquitoes to disturb her, and the temperature was very suitable. She woke up at around 7 in the morning. After getting up to wash up, she went down to the first floor to see if breakfast was ready. When she came to the dining table, she saw Fu Xuanyi already sitting there with a breakfast in front of him. Aunt Fu said, "Madam, you are up. Sit down and I will have your breakfast served." Wei Yuxian said okay and sat down on the chair, a little distance from Fu Xuanyi. She looked at the man and said, "Good morning, Mr. Xian. Say hello to him." After all, she was living in Fu Xuanyi's home now, so it was right to say hello to him. Fu Xuanyi said looked at her and said, "I have a rest today. You can go shopping at home. If you want to go out, you can ask the driver to pick you up." He gave Wei Yuxian instructions. Although he expressed concern, his tone was still so cold that those who didn't know thought he had put an ice maker in his throat. Wei Yuxian was still not used to his cold way of speaking, and was still afraid of him. She said and stopped talking to him. Soon, Aunt Fu brought her breakfast. She took a look and saw that it was different from Fu Xuanyi's. She thought that this was specially prepared for her by the kitchen. Eating breakfast quietly, Wei Yuxian ate a little slowly, chewing slowly and not wanting to eat so fast. Eating slowly is easier for digestion and good for the body. In the past, she ate very quickly to save time, and she also had some stomach problems. Now that she has time, she can eat more slowly, which is good for her health, and she doesn't have to waste extra money on medical treatment. Her stomach was half full, and Fu Xuanyi over there was full. He wiped his mouth and said, "I'm at work." On Sunday, the busy Mr. Fu still had to go to work. Of course, I don't know if he was working for the Fu group. The Fu family can reach its current status in Kyoto, and it is definitely not possible to rely solely on the public. There is also some business in the secret, which allows the Fu family to go so far and stand in such a high position. Wei Yuxian looked at him, thought for a while, and said, "Master Xian, walk slowly." Fu Xuanyi said no more, just glanced at her, saw that she looked well behaved, and left with peace of mind. After breakfast, Wei Yuxian still had nothing to do. She watched TV in the living room for a while, then went for a walk outside to see what Fu's house had and how big it was. She wanted to know more about this place so that it would be convenient for her to go wherever she wanted to go in the future. After walking for a while, Aunt Fu came from nowhere and followed her, saying, "Madam, if you want to take a walk in the future, you can ask someone to follow you." Madam is now the fragile treasure of the entire Fu family, with 2 little masters in her belly. If something happens to Madam in the house, they won't get anything good to eat. Therefore, no matter where Madam is in the house, someone must follow her. Wei Yuxian smiled at Aunt Fu and said, "No, Aunt Fu, I just walk around casually without anyone following me." However, Aunt Fu said disapprovingly, "My dear Madam, now that you are pregnant, you should pay more attention and have people follow you to prevent any accidents. It's really not necessary, Aunt Fu. You can go and do your own business now. I'll be gone for a while and then go back." "No, Madam, if something happens to you, our whole family will be unable to eat and walk around. You'd better let me follow. Besides, there is nothing to do now." Wei Yuxian thought for a while and didn't let Aunt Fu leave anymore. She asked her to follow her and said, "Then Aunt Fu, please show me around the house." Aunt Fu was very happy and said, "Okay, then I will take Madam for a nice tour of the house." After walking for about an hour, Wei Yuxian felt that it was okay, not very tired, and she could continue walking. Fu Mansion was very big, which she had not expected. She did not expect that a villa could be built so big. Not only that, even the mountains behind are included in the villa. She still wanted to leave and go shopping. After walking for an hour, she only looked at a small corner of Fu's mansion. There were still many places she hadn't seen. But Aunt Fu refused to let her go. She took her to the pavilion to sit down and said, "Madam, your exercise level has reached the limit today. You'd better not leave any more. Moderate exercise is good, especially for pregnant women, but excessive exercise is not good, and can even lead to miscarriage in severe cases." Therefore, Aunt Fu refused to let Wei Yuxian leave, not even to walk back. Instead, she contacted a servant and asked someone to drive the car to this place and take Wei Yuxian back. Wei Yuxian looked at her nervous look and said, "Aunt Fu, it's nothing. I'm just taking a walk, it won't take long to walk back." They just spent so much time walking around, but now it only takes less than an hour to walk back to the house. But Aunt Fu refused to let her out of the pavilion. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 18. The sun also came out outside, and it was very hot on people. Aunt Fu refused to let people out. She said, "Madam, just listen to me. The sun outside is too strong and it will burn you. Just sit there for a while and the car will be here soon." After hearing this, Wei Yuxian could only sit quietly in the pavilion, waiting for the car to arrive. She didn't expect that she would need to drive at home. This kind of thing that only happens in TV series actually happened to her. About 10 minutes later, the servant arrived in a car. Aunt Fu quickly asked Wei Yuxian to get in the car. It was so hot here that she could take a shower with all the sweat on her body. In the car, the air conditioner was turned on so well that Wei Yuxian couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. After another 10 minutes drive, the servant stopped the car. Wei Yuxian got out of the car, returned to her room, took out her book and continued reading. She would probably spend the whole day today reading, because she had nothing else to do. During lunch, Fu Xuanyi did not come back. Wei Yuxian ate lunch alone. It was still a delicious and nutritious meal, and she was very satisfied with it. After eating, take a nap, then get up and continue reading until it's time to go out to eat. This time, she saw Fu Xuanyi, who was back for dinner. But it didn't make any difference whether he came back or not. Apart from saying hello to him, Wei Yuxian never said anything else to him. After eating, she went back to her room, not wanting to stay in the same space as Fu Xuanyi. After she left, Fu Xuanyi called Aunt Fu over and asked Wei Yuxian about today's situation. Aunt Fu told him everything about Wei Yuxian's walk and reading in the villa today, and even how much food Wei Yuxian had eaten. Fu Xuanyi had no reaction and asked Aunt Fu to go down. The next day, Monday, Wei Yuxian had her first class in the morning. The first class time was at 8 o'clock. The villa was a 20-minute drive from the school. Considering the distance from the villa, she had to leave half an hour early. After getting up at 7 o'clock, she washed briefly, had breakfast downstairs, and got into Fu Xuanyi's car. The man in the driver's seat still had a cold face and didn't say a word. When he saw the person getting into the car, he started the car and set off. Wei Yuxian didn't say anything. She was sitting in the back seat. The car was very quiet and the atmosphere was very solid. She just felt that being in the same space with Fu Xuanyi was very oppressive and she didn't dare to let out her breath. Who makes this man feel so oppressive? This was the first time she had seen such an aura person. I don't know whether the aura on his body is natural or acquired. If it is acquired, how is it achieved? Wei Yuxian put away these random thoughts and said, Master Xian, just put me down in the alley outside the school, and I will go in by myself. She didn't want Fu Xuanyi to drive the car to the school gate or inside the school in such a high-profile manner, which would attract attention. If someone she knew saw her getting out of a car like this, I don't know what they would say. Fu Xuanyi said and agreed. Wei Yuxian said again, can you ask the driver to pick me up in the future? It would be too troublesome for you to do it yourself. This is one of the reasons, and another more important reason is that she doesn't want to stay in the same oppressive space as Fu Xuanyi. She felt very uncomfortable just being with Fu Xuanyi, let alone being alone with him. In order to make herself more relaxed in the future, she decided to make such a request to Fu Xuanyi. She felt that Fu Xuanyi would agree. After all, picking up and dropping off every day was indeed a tiring job, and he still had work to do. As a result, Fu Xuanyi said to her, no trouble. It means that if he doesn't agree with her request, he still has to take her to and from school in person. Wei Yuxian. She didn't dare to speak any more or say anything to persuade. She was afraid that Fu Xuanyi would be angry. When this man is not angry, he has a cold face and looks very scary. If he gets angry, it will be even more terrifying. Forget it, he would pick her up and drop her off in person. At worst, she would just put her mind on other things in the future. When they came to the alley next to the school, Fu Xuanyi stopped the car. Just as Wei Yuxian was about to get out of the car, the person in front said, Aunt Fu will bring you food at noon. Wei Yuxian was stunned for a moment, then said I understand, got out of the car, and said, goodbye, Mr. Xian. She walked into the school without looking back and hurried to the classroom. Fu Xuanyi watched her disappear and ensured that she was absolutely safe before leaving the school and going to the company. Wei Yuxian hurried to the classroom, just in time. As soon as she sat down in the front seat, the class bell rang. The teacher also came to the classroom at this time and started taking roll call. Wei Yuxian adjusted breathlessly for a while, opened the textbook, and turned to the content to be taught today. Fortunately, this classroom is very close to the school gate, otherwise she would not be able to catch up. There are very few people sitting in the front seat, and most students sit in the back, so that it is easier to fish. But Wei Yuxian is different. Every time she sits in the front seat, and she is the only one in the front. The three roommates often sit together in the back. She has a bad relationship with them, even very bad, and doesn't want to get along with them at all. Sitting in the front is just right, so she doesn't have to hear the unpleasant words they say. She also didn't have a good relationship with other classmates in the class, because Ding Nana always said bad things about her and kept her classmates away from her, so she felt even more lonely. But it's okay, she doesn't care about this, it's just that she doesn't have anyone to talk to. She used to come here like this most of the time, and she has long been used to it. It doesn't matter whether she has friends or not. And the main purpose of her coming to school is to study. As for friends, if she can't make true friends, then it's okay not to make them. After the teacher called the roll, class began. Wei Yuxian listened attentively and took notes carefully. In the back row, Ding Nana sat with two other roommates. She and her two roommates were fishing in the back row and playing with their mobile phones. Tired of playing with her phone with her head down, she raised her head and twisted her neck. She saw a figure in front of her. She looked familiar, but the clothes on this person were too good. She couldn't confirm for a moment whether he was the person. Wei Yuxian. She poked the two followers beside her and asked, do you think the one in front of you is Wei Yuxian? The two roommates looked at her and said, it's her. I'm very familiar with that figure. Besides, she's the only one in the class who can sit in that position. Ding Nana nodded and asked, Did you notice anything different about her today? The two roommates looked at it carefully and found nothing wrong. They said, "No, how can she be different?" You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 19. Ding Nana narrowed her eyes and said, "Take a closer look. Are the clothes she is wearing very different?" The two girls continued to look, this time focusing on her clothes, and found that her clothes were indeed different from before. They remembered very clearly what clothes Wei Yuxian wore before. They were all wide, bulky, cheap-looking clothes, and looked like they had been worn for a long time. But today, what she was wearing was obviously different from before. Very different. One of the girls asked, "When did she buy new clothes? And this style looks familiar to me. It seems to be a new model from XX, a limited edition." Another girl opened her eyes wide and said, "It seems to be true. I've been eyeing this dress for a long time, but I just don't have the money to buy it." Ding Nana also noticed it, but she felt that what Wei Yuxian was wearing must be fake, and she didn't know which bad software she bought it from. The authentic piece of clothing costs 20,000 yuan. Even she couldn't afford it, let alone a poor girl like Wei Yuxian. She didn't even have money to eat. How could she have money to buy such good clothes? She smiled sarcastically and said, "This poor girl even knows how to buy fake goods from big brands. How can she pretend to be so? She looks so poor. She looks so poor in everything she wears. The sour smell makes me, I can smell it right here." The two girls nodded in agreement. Yes, yes, it must be a fake. How can this poor guy afford the real thing? By the way, Sister Na, this poor guy hasn't been in the dormitory these 2 days, and he didn't even go back to sleep woolen cloth. Ding Nana also remembered such a thing and said, "Yes, I haven't seen this damn poor ghost in the past 2 days. Where has she gone? She must have gone out with some wild man to fool around." The girl said, "I think so. Sister Na, look at her. She changed her clothes when she came back from 2 days away. How can she afford new clothes like that? A wild man must have bought them for her." Ding Nana curled her lips and said, "I want to see which idiot is so ignorant that he would actually fall in love with a poor guy like Wei Yuxian. Wouldn't it be nice for him to find another woman with this money?" The girl said, "Anyone who likes Wei Yuxian is probably not a good person. He might also be a poor guy. A poor guy and a poor guy are really a perfect match." The three girls in the back row laughed quietly, covering their mouths as they were afraid that the teacher would hear them if they laughed too loudly. After all, it was class time now. Wei Yuxian didn't know what the people behind her were talking about her, and she didn't want to know. During class time, she had to attend class well, learn all the knowledge, and not miss a class. The things she learned in this major were relatively complex and difficult. If she didn't listen carefully, it would be difficult to make up for it later. She didn't want to waste time and money retaking it. One class, plus a 10-minute break in between, totaled 90 minutes. Wei Yuxian listened attentively throughout the whole class. After the class, she took notes on everything the teacher said and drew everything she had to memorize and take the test. After this class, there was a 20-minute break, but Wei Yuxian did not take a leisurely rest. Instead, she picked up the textbook, put it into a large canvas bag, and hurried to the next classroom to start class. There are 2 classes in the morning and 2 classes in the afternoon. It is full of classes today and some are very busy. When she rushed to the next classroom, there were 5 minutes left before class started. She sat in the front row and took out a water glass to drink. This is a big class, the kind where several classes take it together. Everyone wants to sit in the back row, but the seats are limited and there are so many people, so the front is inevitably full of people. A minute after she sat down, a boy sat next to her. He was in the same major as her but in a different class. The reason why Wei Yuxian remembered him was because they had sat together several times and the boy would also chat with her. The boy has a boyish hairstyle with a slightly parted cap. He is also good looking and is a popular type in school. Many girls like him. Classmate, we meet again. The boy leaned slightly sideways, put a hand on his chin, and looked at Wei Yuxian with a smile. Wei Yuxian smiled back at him and said, "Long time no see." The boy rubbed his messy hair and said, "I've seen you so many times, but I still don't know your name." "My name is Cheng Jinjiao, what's yours?" "My name is Wei Yuxian." "Nice to meet you, classmate Cheng Jinjiao," she said politely. "So your name is Wei Yuxian. This name suits you very well." "Yuxian, can I call you Yuxian?" he asked sincerely later. Wei Yuxian nodded, took out the books she would use in class later, and said, "Okay." Cheng Jinjiao raised his lips, happy that the relationship between them had become closer, and said, "Since we will have classes together in the future, let's add WeChat so that we can keep in touch in the future." Wei Yuxian hesitated, and after a few seconds, she took out her phone and added WeChat with him and set up a note. After doing this, it was time for class, and the teacher walked into the classroom. Cheng Jinjiao originally wanted to chat with her again, but when he saw that she was already studying seriously, he stopped talking. Wei Yuxian was actually not very good at chatting with strangers, so she breathed a sigh of relief when the teacher came in to teach, and she happened to be taking the class seriously. The teacher was lecturing non-stop on the podium, and the seats below were full of students, but no one knew how many were listening carefully. Some were playing with their mobile phones, and some were dozing off. As time passed by, the teacher's enthusiasm for teaching remained unchanged. Wei Yuxian also wrote page after page of notes without focusing on anything else. Next to him, Cheng Jinjiao occasionally glanced at the person beside him who was listening carefully to the lectures and taking notes. The more he looked at her, the more he felt that she exuded a charm, a generally unknown charm, which attracted him. He noticed her during the first class. She was good looking, but a little thinner. Then he observed her for several weeks and felt that he was interested in her, so he formally met her today. She was very different today. She was wearing a set of clothes that suited her very well. Her whole temperament was completely different. She was more beautiful and attractive. He couldn't help but focus more on her. Just watching like this, he didn't listen to the class for a few minutes. Time passed and it was time for get out of class to end. Wei Yuxian packed her things, said goodbye to the people around her, got up and walked out. As she walked, she took her mobile phone to contact Aunt Fu, asking her where she was now, and agreed with her on where to pick up the meal. Cheng Jinjiao was in a daze just now. When he came to his senses, Wei Yuxian had already followed the flow of people to the door of the classroom. He quickly picked up his things and chased after her, squeezing in beside Wei Yuxian. "Yuxian, do you want to go to dinner together? There is a stir-fried restaurant in the third dining hall that is super delicious," he invited her. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 20. With a slight smile on her face, Wei Yuxian politely declined, "Sorry, classmate Cheng, my family brought me food, so I won't go with you." Cheng Jinjiao could only say with some regret, "Okay then, let's make an appointment next time." He was still thinking of getting closer to each other by eating, but it was a pity. Wei Yuxian left him separately and went to the place agreed with Aunt Fu. When she got there, she saw a black car parked under the tree. Aunt Fu got out of the car, holding a thermos bucket in her hand. "This place is remote, and no one usually goes there. It's lunchtime, and no one comes. In order to prevent others from discovering it, Wei Yuxian deliberately chose such a place, which was very safe. Aunt Fu, thank you for your hard work. Wei Yuxian took the thermos bucket handed over by Aunt Fu. Aunt Fu smiled and called Madam and said, "It's not hard, that's right. After Madam finishes eating, just take the thermos bucket back in the evening. I'll still be here waiting for Madam at this time tomorrow." "Okay, thank you Aunt Fu. If nothing happens, I will go back to the dormitory first." "Madam, walk slowly." Wei Yuxian walked back to the dormitory with her meal. As soon as she entered the door, she saw her 3 roommates there, sitting in their respective seats and eating. Without saying a word or saying hello to them, she walked back to her place to eat. Ding Nana threw the spoon into the bowl and said sarcastically, "Hey, the poor guy is finally willing to come back. Which wild man have you been hanging out with in the past 2 days? You even put on new clothes. Have you been beaten by someone? Got it in exchange for being screwed up?" Ha ha ha. 3 hearty laughs came from the dormitory, but in Wei Yuxian's ears, these sounds were so harsh and unpleasant. She could tell that Ding Nana's words had a double meaning. She still didn't speak, turning a deaf ear to their words and minding her own business. She put her phone on the table and pretended she didn't hear them. Fen Yi, one of the 2 girls, accidentally saw Wei Yuxian's cell phone on the table and said, "Sister Na, look at her cell phone. She even changed it." Another girl named Chen Wei was the closest to Wei Yuxian and could see what Wei Yuxian's phone looked like at a glance. After seeing clearly what kind of phone it was, she widened her eyes and said, "Sister Na, her phone is actually the latest pineapple phone. The one that costs more than 10,000 yuan. When Wei Yuxian saw them discussing her cell phone, she quickly turned it over and covered the back to prevent them from seeing it. She didn't expect that this mobile phone would also cause trouble for her. Ding Nana couldn't even eat anymore, so she stood up and asked, "Are you sure it's a pineapple phone? The latest model?" Chen Wei nodded firmly and said, "I'm sure. This is the one my brother uses. I won't get it wrong." Ding Nana walked over, picked up Wei Yuxian's cell phone, and looked at it. Wei Yuxian quickly turned her head and said, "Give it back to me." Ding Nana felt the quality of the phone. It didn't look like a fake, it was almost the same as the real thing. "But where did this poor guy get the money?" she asked. "Is your phone real or fake? It looks like the real thing." In order to avoid trouble, Wei Yuxian said, "Fake." Ding Nana made a cut sound, put the phone back on the table, and said, "Let me tell you, a poor guy like you can still afford a real pineapple phone. She uses the pineapple mobile phone, but it is not the latest model, but the previous model, which also cost her 8,000 yuan to buy." She walked back and continued eating, having no time to pay attention to Wei Yuxian. For this reason, Wei Yuxian also breathed a sigh of relief, put her phone aside, and ate the nutritious meal that Aunt Fu sent to her. Fortunately, they were just making a fuss and didn't get to the bottom of it. She chose to endure the bullying from these 3 people and pretended not to hear them. She also thought about resisting, but no, she had resisted before, but in exchange, she only got more excessive bullying from others. With the personalities of these 3 people, Ding Nana, if they resisted, they would definitely get worse. Now they just said those ugly words verbally, without causing any real harm to her, so she could tolerate it and get over it. Anyway, out of the 4 years of college, they only stayed together for 3 years, and from now on, she would only come back at noon and stay in Fu's house at night, so she would have less time to face them. After eating the nutritious meal sent by Aunt Fu, she washed the thermos bucket and put it on the table, then went to bed. The first class in the afternoon was at 3 o'clock. Wei Yuxian got up at 2:30, washed up and went out in 10 minutes, and walked to the right classroom. After 2 classes, when it was time for school to end, she took her books and walked to the school gate without returning to the dormitory. When I walked to the alley that I had agreed with Fu Xuanyi, the car was already parked there, but I didn't know how long I had been waiting. She quickened her pace, got into the car, and greeted the man in front of her, Master Xian. Yeah, the man responded, started the car and went back after receiving the person. It was dinner time when they returned home. Wei Yuxian and Fu Xuanyi washed their hands and sat down to eat facing each other without saying a word. Wei Yuxian didn't know what to say to him, and there was nothing interesting to talk about. In addition, she was still afraid of Fu Xuanyi, so she had nothing to say. After dinner, she went back to her room to do her homework, take a shower and go to bed, and the day passed like this. Every day after that, except during vacation time, Fu Xuanyi personally took her to and from school, never leaving behind. Gradually, Wei Yuxian got used to his daily pickups and drop-offs, but the atmosphere between them was still so dull. Apart from saying hello every day, they had nothing to say. On this day, Fu Xuanyi sent Wei Yuxian to school as usual. It was mid-November and the weather was getting colder. Wei Yuxian put on the new coat bought for her by the Fu family. This month, she ate well and slept well at Fu's house. She didn't have to worry about anything except studying, so her body became a little rounder, she gained a little fat, and her belly bulged a little. Wei Yuxian was a little glad that it was winter now, because when her belly got bigger, she could still have thick clothes to cover her up, so that no one would notice that she was pregnant. She didn't want people at school to find out that she was pregnant, especially Ding Nana and the other three. If they saw her, they might start gossiping. Before getting off the bus, Wei Yuxian said to Fu Xuanyi, "Goodbye, Mr. Xian." Normally, Fu Xuanyi would have said a cold but today, for the first time, he said goodbye. But Wei Yuxian didn't pay much attention and didn't notice any difference. She opened the door and got out of the car. Fu Xuanyi was still the same as before, watching her walk into the school until she disappeared. In the past, he always looked at Wei Yuxian with cold eyes, but now, the coldness in his eyes has faded a lot.